Now we go. Okay, so we start again. That's all right. So we start again. 2 questions. First of all to Kateryna, and then to Jonathan. Kateryna, you've translated Jonathan's poetry into Ukrainian. What have you learned about his poetry? Jonathan, the question that you gave to Kateryna, where does your inspiration, where does your poetry come from? Where does that world come from?
So what did I learn from Yonatan poetry was everything basically that I know now about contemporary Israeli poetry, because I have never had a chance before to discover some poetry from Israel that exists and that is written now. I knew some poets from previous years, but never ever experienced or read something from people who are living now in Israel, dealing with the things that are happening now, and who are more or less the same age as me. And so, whenever you tell about the landscapes and the details of life, or the ideas, or some social things that are present here now, this all I took from this poetry. And the very important thing is something in between the Jewish religious life and secular life, because he's, I would say, in the middle of it, being brought up in very religious Jewish tradition, but doing like some regular life. I don't know the correct English word for this, not religious, but simple human being life in Israel. So he's very much in between of that, giving you both understanding of the life of religious Jew in Israel now and the life of just the ordinary person in Israel now again.
תגיד, זה המדיח? מה שעושה את המנוע?
לא, זה המתרגם.
So I want to say something. First of all, I want to say something about the importance of translation. One of the problems we have in Israel is, in society, is isolation of different groups or individuals in their social surrounding and ideology. We have people that surround them with people that think the way they think, look the way they look. And then we have these small sections that never come to a discussion one with another. For us, it's a big problem. And I think the same thing about poetry. If you're only surrounded by your own language, by your own atmosphere, by your own landscapes, by your own thoughts, then you're isolated, and you're probably gonna be stuck with one approach, with one opinion. That's why I thought, I think that translation is highly important. For me to travel to Chernovich and meet the Ukrainian poetry was important in breaking the isolation of a young poet from Israel, which knows one thing, and I met there a completely different way to approach poetry, and we can discuss what, but the important thing was to meet a different way of thinking and writing poetry. I think the same way we have the problem in society, poetry has to be in a conversation between countries. And about the place my poetry comes from, it's changing actually right now. Most of my previous poetry, my 2 first books, were about my life. The settlement, the religious life, the family, the service in the Israeli army, the traveling in the world, and then some other poems about different issues, but that was the main thing. And my last poetry book is called History, and it's about Judaism. I tried to summarize Judaism into poetry, so I have 120 poems. 100 of them is portrait of figures from the biblical stories, the prophets, and then I have Spinoza there, I have Einstein, I have Jesus, I have Mark Rothko, I have Chagall. I try to do a summary of Judaism in poetry, and I'm saying it because right now my poetry wants to deal with topics that are outside of me, not inside of me. I don't want to deal with my biography anymore, or now I want to deal with outside topics. So I think about poetry as a laboratory where I put some stuff inside. For me, Judaism is a very important thing to discover, to understand. So I brought Judaism into my laboratory. I worked it for 2 years, and then I gave this book of an attempt to describe Judaism in poetry. So for me right now, this is what I'm interested about. My next poetry book, I think, will be in a collaboration with the Israeli Museum, and I want to do a poetry book which is a tour in the exhibition. I want to write poems about the different paintings and objects in the exhibition, so I want people that come to the museum to take the book and be able to do a walk in the museum with the book. But I'm trying to find things outside of me. I'm a bit tired of dealing with myself and my biography. And anyway, in the Israeli young literature life and poetry, most poets are dealing only with their life, their habitat, their family, the place they grew in. And I think it's a bit weak. You can write about it, but not all the time.
But from my point of view, those two books of poetry, when you are dealing with your own life, your own biography, it was not like the life and biography of some exact personality.
Of course.
But this was the way to get inside of the Israeli life nowadays, to understand what do people live, what do they face in their life, how do they accept the military service, the religious stuff, being in the settlement, what do they see around themselves, and how does the life in this country look like. So this poetry was in a way very informative and very important for me. That was basically the only source I had to discover this information.
I agree. You have to write in the beginning about your biography, 100%.
But I think, most people, particularly in the West, they look at, certainly in the United States, poets are a different breed of human being. And for me, I always think, what impels a poet? I mean, what impels? I've seen Kateryna's poetry on Facebook. Sometimes in the middle of the night, she'll post something. I don't know if you do the
Not
same thing.
in the middle of the night. I'm sleeping in the middle.
But really, what? I mean, what impels one to be a poet?
Sensitivity. You have this kind of, I'm just reading now, I don't know if it's big in Ukraine, but in Israel it's very popular, the books of who got the Jerusalem Prize now, Karlu Bekamska. You heard of him? No.
I have heard about him, but never read. It's not translated.
So what is very interesting, he describes his life for these 6 volumes, very detailed. And what do you think about it? You really see, like, he goes to process like his brother, he meets death of his father and different things. And you really see in this book the way that the only thing is a way of sensitivity. Like you just go into the world, I think, from birth with this type of sensitivity, with this time. I would say a better word than sensitivity is being strange. You are a stranger. You are always a stranger. You are always outside of your place. You're always not completely inside. You never feel home. You never feel completely understandable. You never understand completely the world. And this sense of strangeness is the place that poetry comes out from, I think. And I'm not saying it as a bad thing. I think feeling a stranger is a very valuable present. But I think that's where my poetry comes from. I never feel at home, so I always look at the things from a bit outside, and when you look at things from outside, you have reflection, and poetry is reflection.
I would rather agree with him about this concept of being stranger, being partly the participant and partly the observer, and having it all inside of you and have to deal with it all the time. That's the point of being a poet. Yeah. And the openness and the sensitivity, yes, which makes this all possible.
So is poetry important?
Yes.
The most important thing. There's nothing more. I just wrote about it the other day. The most amazing thing I read about poetry is the Nobel Nobel Prize lecture of Brodsky. You read it?
Yes.
It's perfect. It's perfect. Brodsky says there basically that poetry is the biggest achievement of humanity, and the actual real way to address the world is poetry. And you just have to read it. He gives you this evidence, which are completely right, you know. And he's right. I mean, the only difference we have from all the other creatures in nature is poetry. It's not other things. Like poetry is the difference between us and our surrounding. Poetry is the ability to mix between the metaphysical sense and the physical sense. We feel there is a mystery, we feel there is an absence, we feel there is something bigger than the daily life, and then we have the daily life. And the collision between the two, which is poetry, is the biggest, it's the unique thing of humanity. The unique thing of humanity is not territory and not politics. Animals has territory and politics with their inner habitats. You know, the only thing that separates us is the ability to address the metaphysical and the physical together. And that's poetry. So, you know, like, yeah.
I would only change poetry to literature in general, but
okay.
Then I can
But prose,
completely
I write prose, and I write more prose than poetry these days, and still poetry is the queen. Prose is the manager of the factory, but the boss is poetry. Like, you know, poetry is the queen.
So I will, to make it accessible to the viewer, I will ask you one more question. And that is, because Jonathan, I know you were, when we met in Chernivtsi, you were ready to take a very big trip. And Kateryna takes big trips often.
Yeah, more than me.
Yeah. So I'm curious, in these trips that you take, how do they change you? And given the fact that you have been to Ukraine, Kateryna's been now to Israel, do you see that changing you in any sort of way? Does it add a layer of understanding and challenge as you write?
It's all about adding the layers. This is the way traveling and experience the new places, new people, new cultures makes you bigger. It adds new and new and new layers of understanding, and so obviously it's changed your approach in writing and in living in general, because understanding more and more people, more and more cultures gives you more and more ideas, and that's it. That is what you use to write.
Yeah, I agree very much about the layers and the richness of life. But I would say something more, it's that when I travel, I'm in the perfect situation of strangeness. Because strangeness is also connected to understanding the world around you. Now, when I walk in Israel, I'm a stranger, but I'm so familiar with the language and the habits and the way people look, so I can't be a complete stranger, because my inner dictionary knows all these things. When I land in another place, I don't know the language, I don't know the people, I'm a complete stranger. And for me to be in this place of complete strangeness, I just like it, you know. I feel like it's the complete Yonatan. I'm like doing the quest into the end of my mentality, the end of my character when I'm traveling. And about the influence of being in Ukraine, so there's two things. One of them, which is biographical, is that my father is Ukrainian. He was born in Odessa and he lived half of his life in Odessa. So when I come to Ukraine, and let's say it like this, my father, half of his life I don't know. I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian, so I don't know half of the life of my father, really, I don't know it. For me, my father is someone that started when he was 40. So I don't know his childhood and his youth. And he never speaks with me, rarely he speaks with me about these topics. But when I come to a place like Ukraine, I can suddenly meet my father that I don't know. So when I come to Chernovich or to Odessa, I went to Odessa as well, I feel like I'm meeting my father or my family, you know. whole side of my family that I don't know. I meet them. Same in Germany. When I go to Germany, that's the other side of my family. I feel like I meet my family because they don't speak German and they did a complete cut of Germany. But for me as a writer, or my mentality, I need my deeper roots. You know, some people don't need it, but I need to go deep. I need to understand who I am deeply, and that means also Germany and Ukraine. So that's one thing. And the other thing is, as I said, like in a way, we are. Israel is a mixture between Ukraine and Cairo. Yeah, Israel is half Eastern Europe and half Arabic, and you can never completely understand it until you go to a place like Ukraine, and then you go to a place like Morocco, and then suddenly you understand better the complicity of Israel, because we are really Eastern European in a Mediterranean environment, or Mediterranean people as Arabic origin Jews that suddenly meets Western society and Western culture that the European Jews brought. So each part of us meeting the other part. So I feel that only when I travel in Europe or travel in Arab countries, which I can't do too much, but I was in Egypt, then you understand a bit the mixture of Israel. Yeah.
Super. Thank you.
Yeah, I spoke too much.
No.